Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy. And we got plenty of politics for today, a little bit of pop culture, but we'll do 20 minutes with Nat first.
20 minutes.
Whoa.
I don't have that much to say today. More like 10, maybe.
Okay, do you want to talk a little bit before we get into the 20 minutes of Spanish? We kind of always jump right into it.
Sure.
Do you want to talk about what got in the dog's ear or some news or what?
Well, I mean, I do eventually want to talk about the JFK files, but people are still combing through them. Again, it's 80,000 pages, and not much has come out yet, which is why we're not going to talk about it today, but I do think it's important to keep it in the news.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be a lot in there. That's the thing.
Yet. But I mean, it's 80,000 pages, so until somebody combs through all that.
It's more than the Epstein files were, that's for sure.
Yes, at least as of now, yes.
They still got the Martin Luther King and Malcolm X files coming out, so.
Mm-hmm. And then the files about RFK's dad. Those are missing as well.
Oh, those are missing as well. But
well, he promised he was going to bring it up. Like Trump promised he was going to bring it up as well.
Oh, okay, but he hasn't signed the order yet. Just for those other three, he signed the order. So we'll see what happens.
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's cut me off and get into your Spanish.
Supongo que eso es todo lo que tenemos que decir. Buenas noches, ¿cómo están? Ay, siempre veo la cámara que no es. Buenas noches, ¿cómo están? ¿Cómo les va? Espero que bien. Si notaron, habíamos estado cambiando a qué horas sacábamos videos y los últimos videos los habíamos sacado como a las 7:30 de la noche de esta semana, pero nadie los ve o no le llegan a nadie o no sé qué está pasando, o tal vez a la gente no le importa Stitch tanto, pero vayan a ver el video de Stitch, please, porque ese es como el peor al que le ha ido de todos nuestros videos en los últimos meses. Entonces, hoy no voy a sacar video y más bien voy a sacar uno mañana. El que iba hoy lo voy a sacar mañana en la mañana y luego también la reseña, resumen, etcétera, sobre Blancanieves, porque la vamos a ir a ver mañana. Y pues ya han empezado a salir algunas críticas sobre Blancanieves y pues en efecto parece ser lo que todos temían. Rachel Zegler sigue diciendo estupideces, pero también la han estado tratando de esconder un poquito más. Y luego Gal Gadot a la reina malvada, le dieron su estrella en el Hollywood Walk of Fame, donde tienen todos los artistas sus estrellas en Hollywood. Y pues obviamente interrumpieron gente protestando, gente ridícula, pro Israel, pro Palestina, bla, bla. Se armó todo un rollo, pero bueno, de Blancanieves será mañana en la tarde o en la mañana del viernes. Y ya la próxima semana vamos a empezar a sacar videos, no en vivo, pero videos durante las mañanas otra vez, porque nos iba mejor durante la mañana. No sé por qué, no entiendo, a veces no entiendo YouTube qué pasa con cuando sí nos enseña al público, cuando no, pero bueno. Noticias, pues sabemos que están pasando cosas en México, en Jalisco, pero se me ha recomendado, digamos, no hablar muy a fondo sobre el tema hasta que no empiecen a salir más noticias, digamos, verídicas por parte del gobierno. Entonces me lo voy a ahorrar un poco, pero por ahora, pues en noticias sobre diversidad, equidad e inclusión, despiden al CEO, el jefe de Ben & Jerry's, la compañía de los helados, por los comentarios políticos de la compañía. Entonces seguimos viendo por lo menos un poco de reacción en contra de esta ola y la wokificación de los últimos 10 años. Y pues ahora sí se están sufriendo consecuencias. Siempre se ha sabido, si no sabían, que Ben & Jerry's es una compañía que es súper progre y siempre están como a favor de cualquier causa que pues, sea de izquierda o hiper progre o que no hace sentido. Pero parece que por fin, ahora que ya son también parte de la marca Unilever, que pues es dueña de casi todo el mundo, por lo menos la mitad de los productos que ven en los supermercados, pues ya les pusieron un alto por fin. Y sí, es parte de la identidad de la compañía el ser tan progres y tan woke y tan diversidad, equidad e inclusión, pero pues parece que ya también a Unilever ya les dijeron como, bueno, Ya tuvieron suficiente. Ben & Jerry's acusa a su empresa matriz Unilever de incumplir su acuerdo de fusión al destituir al CEO de la heladería por sus reiterados comentarios públicos sobre temas progresistas, tomando la decisión sin aprobación de la junta directiva. Esta es la escalada más reciente de una disputa cada vez más áspera entre la marca y su propietario, el Unilever, que empezó en 2021 y llevan haciendo demandas y obviamente pues los dueños y CEO, porque están separados, no están muy felices, pero alguien tenía que por lo menos salir a poner un poco un alto para decir, no puedes tener un negocio y a la vez querer ser activista político sin que hayan consecuencias, ya sea por parte de tus consumidores y tu público o de pues la compañía a la que al final del día le rindes cuentas. Luego voy a tocar rápido. Ayer hablamos bastante en inglés sobre coches eléctricos y BYD, etcétera, pero ahora parece que Sheinbaum afirma que la inversión de la automotriz china BYD en México nunca fue formal, y esto fue porque un periódico, un medio que es chino, o sea, tiene lazos al Partido Comunista, que se llama Financial Times, expuso que las autoridades chinas están retrasando su visto bueno a una planta que se había anunciado de BYD, que se iba a construir en México, por temor a que la tecnología desarrollada por la empresa acabe en manos estadounidenses. Y en mi opinión, y lo he dicho bastante con especialmente coches eléctricos de China, pues bastante la tecnología que usan, aunque alegan y claman que es 100% suya, pues sabemos que han tenido operaciones y operativos en Estados Unidos, en especial en manufactura y en desarrollo de tecnologías nuevas, donde pues mandan a gente a que trabajen en compañías estadounidenses y repentinamente ahora también los chinos tienen la misma o mejor tecnología. Han sido ha sido encubierto que varias veces han pues tomado tecnología prestada, digamos, de compañías americanas y luego la han hecho pasar por la suya, y a veces cuando intentan hacer estos grandes avances tecnológicos usan en parte los conocimientos de tecnologías gringas, pero también le meten algo nuevo que no siempre funciona, y ya lo he hablado bastante que los coches BYD, por lo menos en China, pues sí han tenido problemas de explosiones y que no son súper seguros, y también los problemas que hay con el hecho de que como son coches pues básicamente completamente computarizados, a veces no se sabe bien qué viene en el sistema computarizado de los coches que pueda pues extraer información, digamos, ya sabe a dónde vas, los viajes que tomas, tu información personal, y es el mismo problema que tengo con TikTok y con pues compañías chinas, digamos. Pero ahora, y aparte de que Sheinbaum y China y México han estado así en los últimos años, ahora afirma que nunca fue formal, que se iba a construir, y parece que BYD está pensando en frenar la planta en México, y igual que las compañías gringas de coches que también han empezado a frenar sus inversiones en México, justamente no solo por eso, pero en parte por las conexiones con China. Entonces México se está quedando como el perro de las dos tortas, con ambos lados diciendo, es que estás ayudando al otro lado, estás ayudando a China, estás ayudando a Estados Unidos, y México siempre termina sin ayudarse a sí mismo. Pero vieron, no sé si alguien vio los coches, ya no puse foto aquí, pero no sé si vieron los coches que se inventaron de que iban a ser coches eléctricos hechos en México por mexicanos, etcétera, pero que se veían bastante ridículos y bastante inútiles, y pues obviamente también con conexiones a tecnologías y empresas chinas, pero iba a ser el coche eléctrico mexicano. Y sí, X. Y luego rápido voy a tocar el tema, nada más para ponerlo, pero Fiscalía General de México admite el hallazgo de restos humanos en fosas de Jalisco y asumirá investigación después de que se la pasaron diciendo que no había nada, que no hay nada que ver por acá, que los reportes iniciales eran erróneos y que no estaba pasando nada. Pues parece que ahora sí está pasando. Ya sabemos cómo se maneja aquí todo este tipo de información, todo este tipo de hallazgos y de... Entonces, pues, les creeremos lo que salga de la investigación, que le creemos más a la gente que estuvo ahí realmente buscando y encontrando cosas, pues probablemente, Pero el fiscal general de México, Alejandro Gertz Manero, informó este miércoles que la Fiscalía asumirá la investigación de hallazgos de artículos personales, identificaciones y listas con nombres en un terreno del municipio de Teuchtitlán, Jalisco. Así le he estado diciendo, no sé si así se dice, pero así le he estado diciendo yo. Admitió también que en el sitio se hallaron restos humanos. Algunos colectivos y organizaciones de derechos humanos consideran que el sitio había campos de entrenamiento y desvivimiento, y será asumida por la Fiscalía. En una conferencia de prensa dijo que ahora sí se le va a pasar a los que van a continuar con la investigación. También salió una organización delictiva a dar un mensaje, mandarle un mensaje bastante interesante también al gobierno. No voy a aunar en eso porque pues solo somos él y yo y pues es mejor no concentrarse en ese tipo de noticias. Aunque se debería y deberíamos de poder y debería de haber algún tipo de protección para personas que hablan sobre esto público y dan sus opiniones de forma pública, pero hasta que no haya un poco más de protección o por lo menos de admitir que sí nos pasan cosas cuando hablamos de cosas de las que no deberíamos, pues seguiré luchando por dentro y por afuerita por ahora. Nada más llevo 12 minutos, pero como me he estado concentrando en los videos, pues tampoco he estado súper al tanto. Como les digo, empezaron a salir, ya regresando a noticias más X, empezaron a salir reseñas sobre Blancanieves y diciendo que, pues, en efecto, ahorita creo que tiene como un 50% en Rotten Tomatoes, que es el primer sitio de crítica donde empiezan a salir las críticas de la gente de la industria. Y pues los que están diciendo que sí está buena o que sí hay que verla, pues obviamente son parte del medio, ahora sí que pagado e influenciado por los grandes estudios y no les conviene decir cosas muy feas contra Disney. Ya, ahora sí ya se me acabó de qué hablar, perdón. Entonces yo creo que regresamos al inglés. Hay noticias también en inglés bastante interesantes, varias de las cuales solo podemos hablar sobre esto en Rumble. Entonces el link está en la descripción. Si quieren irse para allá y vernos por allá, vamos a hablar sobre esto en inglés. Rápidamente digo algunas de las que vamos a hablar. Unas oficinas que están no solo conectadas, pero ahora sí que puestas por el George Soros y su Open Society Foundation, este señor que es un magnate globalista que básicamente influye en todo en el mundo, en especial cuando tiene que ver con justicia. Parece que el primer ministro de India, Modi, les dijo, vamos a empezar a hacer investigaciones porque lo que han estado haciendo y los tipos de documentos que podríamos encontrar ahí nos podrían ayudar para armar un caso, para sacarlo ya por fin de India. Se llevan peleando desde hace tiempo, pero pues qué bueno que alguien por fin le está poniendo un alto a George Soros. Pues ya, si es que la vida no se lo pone antes, porque pues, pero está su hijo también, que es básicamente la versión regenerada de George Soros y un poco peor también. ¿De qué más vamos a hablar en inglés? Varias noticias sobre culturales. También se encontraron a un hombre que estaba intentando un ataque, no sé si puedo decir esa palabra, pero irse en contra de la agencia de la CIA en Estados Unidos. Lo arrestaron, tenía una piu-piu, no voy a decir la palabra en español, pero lo arrestaron y parece que tenía intenciones de causar aún más daño. Se ve como el tipo de persona que esperamos que se vaya contra, en especial en esta forma, porque la forma apropiada es pues legal y con evidencias. Se parece mucho, voy a decir, al que intentó deshacerse de Donald Trump hace unos meses durante la campaña. Tienen bastantes similitudes, ya salieron fotos de este señor y continúan también los ataques en contra de las agencias de Tesla y las estaciones para cargar los coches eléctricos por parte de Tesla, y muchos de ellos se ha encontrado que son personas trans o que en su gran mayoría pues hombres que dicen ser mujeres, pero también algunas mujeres que dicen ser hombres, y pues obviamente ya sabíamos que traían la canica botada, pero ahora sí ya empezó a rodar la canica y han empezado a hacer cosas que yo creo que ni ellos antes hubieran considerado, pero pues como están bastante ya idos de este mundo, pues ¿qué más se puede esperar? Y también se encontró que el gobierno chino, y es una de las razones por las cuales estoy en contra del Partido Comunista Chino, parece que acabaron con la vida de algunos prisioneros canadienses que tenían en China, y se tardó bastante el gobierno canadiense en decir algo al respecto. Ya por fin salieron a decir algo, pero este es el primer desvivimiento por parte del gobierno chino de personas del oeste desde hace mucho tiempo, desde hace más de, me parece, 15 años. Entonces, pues, ya sabemos cómo se manejan y ya sabemos que el gobierno canadiense es básicamente parte del gobierno chino. Entonces, pues ya ni para dónde. Ahora sí les digo, y siempre lo digo, no solo es el gobierno mexicano, son todos. Pero pues lo vemos más de cerca por acá. Todos son corruptos, todos están mal, etc. Perdón si no traigo muchísima energía hoy, pero les digo que llevo editando más videos para sacar más contenido. Eventualmente, ya que tengamos como todo un poco mejor organizado, también voy a asegurarme después de que estos en vivo sean más entretenidos, más noticias locales, más noticias también internacionales, y etcétera. Pero muchísimas gracias por estar por aquí. Denle like si ya están por acá y síganos en Rumble para todas las noticias más fuertes en inglés. Y ahora sí nos vamos con inglés. Buenas noches, muchas gracias. And that's it.
And we're back.
Yes.
Maybe tell everybody in Spanish we're trying to get to 100 subscribers on Rumble.
Okay.
So we can become official creators over there.
Yes. Estamos tratando de llegar en Rumble, de llegar a 100 suscriptores, que pues suena muy poquito, pero ahorita tenemos 36. Muchas gracias a los que sí se han ido a suscribir por allá, porque a partir de los 100 nos dan acceso a la plataforma para creadores, donde es más fácil regular y controlar, y también te dejan hacer en vivos más largos. Entonces, si quieren ir a apoyarnos por allá, muchísimas gracias. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, excellent. Well, yeah, Rumble's a preferred platform because we can speak openly.
Yes.
So that's usually where we talk politics, and YouTube's better for our edited video stuff like that, I guess.
Yeah,
thank you for
videos.
everybody that has been coming over to Rumble, because
Yes.
I have noticed the subscriber base slightly grow just a little bit.
And also how many people are watching on Rumble now. So
Yeah.
that's great, and thank you so much. Also...
were you going to show a picture of the dog?
Yes,
Some people
so
asked.
this is specifically for Rafa, who asked to see a picture of tu papi Rafa, but I will call you Rafa because your name is interesting. But yeah, I will show a picture of our dog that I said kind of looks like Stitch. So here she is. And that is a picture we took in studio. But when she's forward-facing, she looks a little bit more like Stitch, but just in the mannerisms as well. The way, like, there's a scene in the Stitch trailer where he's in the car causing mayhem. She does that, basically, so now we have to strap her in so she can't walk around and try to climb on everything. But yes, there she is.
Well, we took her for a walk tonight, and something got in her ear.
It's really windy outside.
You were originally just going to bring her up.
I was going to bring her up, but she's been shaking her head and doesn't look very happy, so I will not disturb her, and we will continue to fix her ear. They're very big, so things get caught in them. But yes, there she is.
Okay, let's start getting into the culture news then.
Sure.
Okay, the first one was
Get
the
rid of
feds
her.
indicted the director of the 47th Ronin.
Yes, so, okay, you just read the title. Who allegedly scammed Netflix out of millions for never-made TV series. And this kind of reminds me of, there was that one guy, and I should have looked his name up, but they even made a documentary about him. The guy that kind of helped finance The Wolf of Wall Street, that was kind of obsessed with Leo DiCaprio.
Oh.
He was from China, I believe, or somewhere in Asia. Yeah, somewhere in Asia. And he also ended up scamming a lot of Hollywood people out of a lot of money for movies that never got made. And then it turned out that he was also like a fake wine connoisseur, and he was scamming people on that end as well, etc.
Well, it's crazy because the 47th Ronin was actually a high-budget, legit movie, and it was fairly well received. It had Keanu Reeves in it, and the fact that somebody with that kind of portfolio is running a scam like this, Netflix is opening all kinds of new divisions around the world. They have one here in Mexico City. They just opened a new studio up in Vancouver, Canada. Mm-hmm. So they are greenlighting billions of dollars of content.
And they also buy a lot of content made by independently.
I think I think after this happened now, they're going to have a new protocol on how they oversee all the money and the production that's going on.
Yes.
So.
And I mean, you can tell just by going on Netflix that they kind of just let anything come on and be there because a lot of things are not up to par with other streaming services as well, especially when it's like the reality shows or the things that they buy off of smaller creators. I think they might need to be a little bit more careful with what they're bringing on the platform. But I think for them, it's just as much content as they can have because it brings more eyes, even though there might not be great eyes. But yes, allegedly taking $11 million from Netflix for a long-promised sci-fi series that was never made. Carl Rinch, I'm guessing that's how you say the name, allegedly stole from a prominent streaming platform to finance lavish purchases and personal investments instead of completing a promised television deal. And if you have seen some of these documentaries about these kinds of scammers, especially the ones that like work at higher levels, you'll be surprised how very little background checking and how very little formalities there are. Once you get to a certain level, people kind of just throw money at you.
Yeah, but he's kind of ruined his career now, and he had a legitimate career before this. I mean, that was he had a good portfolio.
Yeah,
like that's the top of the heap right there when you're making a movie at that high budget and that high caliber. But outside of one individual running a scam, Hollywood in general has been running a scam on the government for years. Hollywood is known for money laundering, claiming they're over budgeting their movie and just money just disappears and it's written off so they can get around taxes and everything else. So, okay. Do you have anything else on that? Or
no.
Oh, let's go into the next story then. And it's about Bluey.
So yes, Bluey, how a cute Aussie puppy became an estimated $2 billion juggernaut. And this is more just to talk about like the state of children's media today, and also a little bit to touch on what happened with Daily Wire, Benke, and now one of the CEOs leaving.
Yeah, we talked about that yesterday a little bit, but I did put Bluey in there because we often talk about the negative aspects of culture because when it comes up in the news, that's usually what's highlighted. So that's the stories we kind of grab. But Bluey, on the other hand, this is actually a heartwarming story because it has true, real family values, and it went right when the rest of Hollywood kind of went left. And Disney bought some of the rights to it. It airs on Disney Plus, but they don't own all the rights to Bluey, and they really license out the IP to a lot of different individuals. So.
And they're really trying to protect it.
Oh, yeah.
And to bring it into the parks, which it has been announced kind of that they're trying to bring it to the parks, but still they're in.
No, they didn't buy the rights to a bunch of things, so they're trying to bring just the certain aspects they can bring into the parks. They can't build full rides, Yes. So it's going to be interesting.
And yes, Benke tried to do the same, and now apparently with the exit of the God King,
Jeremy
Boring, thank you, of one of the CEOs, it's coming out that their whole children's programming division, Benke, was estimated to make, or they were saying that they were going to try to make, I believe, million, billion, 10 billion.
No,
it was a figure with a 1 and a million.
It was $1 billion, but it wasn't just for Benke. It was for all the Daily Wire.
But it's coming out now that those projected estimates were never even really real.
No, they're trying to sell the Daily Wire. The word is they're trying to sell the Daily Wire, and they got that overestimate because they wanted to sell it. They're not going to be able to sell it for anywhere near that. But because they're trying to sell it, they're really trying to hype it up more than it is, but they have strategically really made good children's content on Benke, and it's something that conservatives really want. And if you don't know what Bluey is, and that's what this story is originally about, it's something you can sit your kids down in front of, and you don't really have to worry about it. It's a wholesome kids show.
But it did have some elements of, It did have some elements that were questionable, let's just say, and some storylines that not all parents would be okay with their kids watching. Yeah.
Because as far as I know.
Because they have brought in certain things very quietly, very slowly.
Okay. The next story is?
Yeah, so a TV series, The Sex Lives of College Girls, canceled after 3 seasons at Max. I've watched sections of it because that's as much as I can tolerate. Yes, well, it's your typical feminist drivel. It's like the passing on the torch from Girls, if you know that TV show, into like a younger generation. It's the same sort of, women being liberated and empowered and having sex and that.
Yeah, I kind of put it in there again to highlight.
But it's interesting. It's canceled.
These feminist shows are starting to get canceled, which is really good to see, and hopefully something's put on there that's entertaining and has real messages and real values installed into it, so it can kind of drive society in the right direction rather than towards gluttony and everything else.
Yes, and also it's a series by Mindy Kaling, and surprisingly, a lot of the things that she has been putting out there, let's not forget Velma, the remake about Scooby-Doo, Velma from Scooby-Doo, also got axed really quickly, and it got shattered by critics and regular people that have brains still. I mean, a lot of critics were praising it for being so inclusive and open and etc., and including these characters that were queer and bleh. And it's the same with this one, and it's kind of her whole spiel. It's the same thing she tries to do all the time, but it might be starting to not fully work anymore, and people might start getting tired. Even the women that it's targeted towards might be getting tired of this kind of messaging, because they might realize it doesn't always work in their benefit to act like the characters they see on TV or on screen.
I was watching WDW Pro today, and it was interesting what they were saying about Marvel. The Marvel Universe has really collapsed in on itself, and over the last decade, that's really what has driven ticket sales into the $100 million and billion-dollar movies. So with the collapse of this, they don't know if theaters will be able to survive at the rate they are. Now, you could replace it with something else, but people are so used. It's kind of become routine to go watch these Marvel movies and things. I'm not really into them, but I do remember when I was a kid and a teen. When I was a kid and a teen, it was original IPs, original ideas. Rambo, Commando, The Goonies, Gremlins. These were original movies and original concepts. They're a lot harder for Hollywood to make. You have to make more bad films in order to find that one good one. Hollywood really likes to play it safe, invest in sequels, invest in things that already have IP and fan bases behind it. I would really like to see an independent studio come up and try to make good new IPs.
Yeah, and the thing is also, studios believe, and I always say this at the end of any video I make about watching movies or reviewing movies or new movies coming out, is that the audience is the ones that give power to these studios. And if they continue to believe that all the things audiences want to watch are these kinds of things, or remakes, or just unoriginal stories, or Wish, for crying out loud, from Disney, their supposed 100-year celebration that was horrible. If the people, the consumers, keep going because there's nothing else to watch, or because they're just walking by the cinema and, let's just go watch whatever's there. This is also why I think Snow White will not do as bad as people think, because a lot of people that aren't 24/7 online or know about all the controversies, or just know it passively, they will still go watch it, and they still will go watch all of this stuff that keeps getting released, and until they see a real reaction at the box office from people that just get fully tired of all of this, they'll continue to do it because it's still profitable for them, especially for global audiences.
Well, they're overpaying for established IPs that, I don't know. They paid $1 billion for James Bond 007. Well, yeah, it's a huge property, but they're paying billions of dollars for different properties that are like James Bond, Marvel, DC, things like this, individual characters. And once you spend $1 billion in an IP, they're almost forced to create a universe around it and make so many spin-offs and so many other things that the public, it's really overfed to the public, and people get tired of it. So,
but I think it's also lack of creativity and lack of the new writers coming up kind of being taught even in their schools or wherever they go, figure out how to write things, how to write original stories. So they're getting stuck with what's safe and what's already been tested with audiences before, even though all those audiences are now sick and tired of watching the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, when you spend $1 billion on an IP, imagine the amount you could create an original IP with that. And I really am hopeful. With a lot of things I'm hard on AI about, but this is going to be maybe a concept where people can write new IPs or new ideas and really root it out through AI and put it onto YouTube and stuff. And if they do have good ideas, it's going to be easier to get investment for feature films and things like this and new ideas.
Yeah, it might help with the proof of concept at least, but which is why a lot of the studios and a lot of Hollywood are so against it, because it opens up the gates to more independent creators. I don't love AI or the concept of AI, but in this respect, it can also be useful for things to be created organically and from the ground up, which in some ways is what brought a lot of the original beloved IPs into existence in the first place.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's good for that. Let's go on to the next one. Which
speaking of AI and technology, NVIDIA and Google DeepMind will help power Disney's cute robots because they don't know what else to throw money at. So NVIDIA is collaborating with Disney Research and Google DeepMind to develop Newton, a physics engine to simulate robotic movements in real-world settings, said the CEO. Disney will be the first among two to first use Newton. And this, might be a step towards innovation, but we still have to see what they do with it. We did see they have an animatronic now in Disneyland, which is Spider-Man, and he can swing, and it's completely
they always had the House of
robot.
the Presidents, which was animatronic.
Well, that too,
as well.
and that with the animatronics, it was Walt Disney and the Disney Company and the Imagineers who brought all of that to life and to the forefront and developed that technology. So, is it good that they're trying to develop a new one? Yes, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a shame how much it costs to actually break into these markets. That's why you're seeing huge companies like NVIDIA and Disney and Google all having to collaborate together in order to get into this market. They're going to compete, obviously, against Tesla. Tesla really does it at a bare bone. The amount of money they invest in is bare bones compared to these other companies, and they seem to be able to do a lot more. But man, I remember when companies were coming up and it wasn't a huge investment, so you had startups and things like that. I think we're really moving away from the age of the startup, where it's big corporations having to invest their own money with other big corporations.
Because a lot of those startups, a lot of them did end up being kind of smoke and mirrors and not being able to give what they were promising that they would be able to.
Well, it was much like the dot-com bubble that had happened when the internet first came up. Everything that had a .com behind it was people, they could get startup money for it. And that's kind of what happened in the age of not only AI, but other empty promises by startups recently.
Yes. And speaking of money, controversy aside, and I kind of touched on this a little bit, Snow White hopes to perk up the box office with 100 million plus global opening, and we did speak yesterday about the fact that the box office, at least in the States and in a lot of other countries, is not doing well right now. It's at one of its lowest points, I think, ever, or at least in the recent years.
But it's trying to tamper what its expectations are. $100 million is not going to be a lot for a global opening, especially of a movie of that caliber. So I would expect maybe if they can hit $40 million in the U.S., China is going to be the big question mark, because China is the other big market that really drives these movies. And when China really wants to send a message to the U.S., they actually ban U.S. movies, and then it completely ends up collapsing that movie. They've done it a few times, but they don't do it on a regular basis. I think Snow White's going to have no problem getting into that market. So it's going to be interesting if alternative media and influencers have really talked about Snow White in China, and is there going to be a backlash? Because there was a movie that had recently come out, and there was a huge national sentiment where a Chinese movie came out at the same time, and there was this movement for all the Chinese to go see the Chinese movie and to boycott the American film, and it really hurt their American film overall.
And with also, it's funny what Disney and kind of the ones that were still trying to keep the dream alive for Snow White even after everything. The first projections for opening weekend domestic box office for the States was around 80 million. Yeah. Then they went down to 75. Then they went down to 55, and now they're saying around 45 to 50 is what they're
kind of 40.
Looking in the range, and then 100 million globally, which, I think they spent 250 million in the movie minus marketing. So with marketing, it'll be probably minimum 350 million.
Oh no, it's usually double
for budget. Okay, so
but I don't. They
around
seem
500 million.
They seem to have tampered down. They seem to tamper down the marketing in this movie a little bit.
But I don't know what they're gonna do with dolls and other toy stuff, especially. I don't know. And we have seen some marketing, at least here. I mean, we saw those apples at the mall.
I definitely think they're focusing on the international markets like Mexico City, like China, places they are hoping the news hasn't really got out and the backlash isn't as hard.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, I do think some people will go watch it. Most people will probably not even realize, I think, some of the undertones maybe of the movie, especially if it is true what they say, that they try to remove her as much as possible and tweak the story so it's not as feminist as she says it was at the beginning. So if they did those changes, then the regular person has no idea about it. I think if you have kids, I mean, they'll probably if there's nothing else to take them to, what do you do with them on a weekend? You go to the movies, and what's on? Oh, Snow White. So I think they will make a lot, especially, yes, as you say, in countries and places where, or with people that aren't really aware or attuned to all of the news.
I really like the Netflix model going forward, and I hope they move away from this globalization model of filmmaking because it has really killed what films have kind of become. Films used to be geared, South Korean market would have the Asian market, China would also be in the Asian market, then you would have American films, then you would have European films. These were made for these markets. What has happened in the age of globalization, they try to write scripts that are less based on the words and more based on the visuals, so somebody will kind of be able to follow the movie even if they don't speak the language. So they've really dumbed down movies to try to globalize it in order to try to make $1 billion. Your modern successful film is a successful film if it garners $1 billion. Now you can make a localized, good written script for a lot less than what it costs to make one of these big budget movies, and the profit margin will still be amazing, but you'll have a better film overall. So I really hope the way Netflix is opening studios in individual regions and investing in film creators in those regions, that I think that's more of the future.
Hopefully. And I mean, we have aspirations to eventually maybe, make documentaries or even movies or something that's more crowdfunded and more organic. So, I mean, if there's a step towards people getting tired of just watching the same very easy to consume globalized drivel, and we do see a move towards more YouTube and more Rumble and people getting news or just entertainment out of these sites where it's almost always mostly user generated content instead of big studios, although we do see big production studios. But what I'm saying is, like, if we can convince more people to go watch independent stuff, maybe they will.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's up to you to convince them or me or anybody else. I think what happens in the new age of YouTube and Rumble and things like this, people that are into film creating and documentaries and things like this can kind of build podcasts and shows where they get a user base. So now they have a way of direct distribution to the audience, so they don't have to rely on big studios and middlemen anymore, which is great. And they can promote through their own websites or direct to download and things like this.
Yes.
Okay, let's go into the next story here, which is the Tulsa King.
Tulsa King renewed for season 3 with another showrunner shakeup. Paramount Plus.
Okay, Paramount Plus hasn't invested in a lot of good conservative content. They were the ones that created
Yellowstone?
Yeah.
And then all the ones that, although they did get I stopped watching it once that woke activist showed up. It just ruined it for me. Because I couldn't I was putting it up with it on the real world. I don't want to watch it on screen. So I don't even know what ended up happening. But they also brought the 1886 or 1883, whatever that, the prequel to Yellowstone and a bunch of other ones, all from this one showrunner. But they have been focusing more on things that
it's not to say they don't have woke content, but at least they did diversified and they didn't ignore the conservative audience, which was nice. And Tulsa King was one of these things. It's actually made by an independent film company, and it's all written by that company as well. So it's truly an independent work. So every season it gets picked up matters to it. It also has Sylvester Stallone, who has really stepped up and on the side of kind of masculinity and conservatism, and he's trying to open a dialogue amongst both sides politically, which is nice to see.
And with this one, it is sort of connected to Yellowstone because it's someone that has worked with Taylor Sheridan, who is the creator of Yellowstone and all of that universe. His name is Dave Erickson, and he has some connections, but it's also shows that are filmed kind of on location almost. I mean, they did film Yellowstone, a lot of it in that ranch, and they do try to film in the places where the things are supposed to happen, and it's the same with this one. So it's also an opportunity to move away from, the Hollywood studio machine and the Vancouver studio machine and go to, the real life, which we don't see anymore.
It really is, but you have to get the investment of one big actor. We're seeing with all these shows in these series. In this one, it was Sylvester Stallone. The other one was Kevin Costner.
And
they built up the other star from that in Yellowstone, who I actually met. He used to come into the bar as well. But you do need these big name actors to really step up. What's going to happen when that generation of actors is gone, though? Because the new generation, these aren't big stars and big names that they're growing anymore.
Yeah, it's sad. It is a little sad to see that nowadays there's not that much like big name actors, and it's more just like influencers. But when you put influencers in movies or musicals or what have you, they can't act and they can't actually do the thing. But nowadays, younger generations aren't interested in the like actors or to give all this power to one or two people. So they kind of distribute it amongst influencers, but then studios to try to rely on that, and they can't do the same job as a real actor or actress.
Yeah, I'm far less interested in going to see a movie based upon an actor these days. And I used to like go see a movie if a certain actor was in there, and now it doesn't appeal to me. I will go based on political undertones because political undertones in these films are what's kind of driving audiences and driving news. It's kind of interesting how you have this convergence of politics and pop culture, kind of like this show, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, let's go into the last story here, and this was a little bit of a different story. I thought I'd just add in there.
So a hunter accused of ending the life of an endangered mother bear claimed self-defense at a trial in France.
Yeah, so the hunter was in the woods and a baby bear came out, and as soon as the baby bear came out, the mother bear charged him and attacked him and mauled his legs. He was forced to kill the bear in order to defend his own life. He had the wounds to prove that he was defending his own life, and now the French government want to prosecute this guy for killing an endangered species, and it's not even an endangered species globally, it's just in France. So I completely understand you're not supposed to hunt endangered species, but when you're being attacked by a bear, you should be able to defend your life without having to worry about going to court over it. It's kind of like in Canada, when somebody invades your home and then you fight back, they want to prosecute you for it.
But I mean, it was an 81-year-old French hunter. But on the other hand, I mean, it does say that according to the investigation, the bear's life was ended 1,300 feet outside of the authorized hunting area. So what was this man doing outside of that area?
He's old and he's wandering
yes, but if
around.
you're 81 and you don't know where you are or what you're doing, maybe don't go hunting anymore. Don't have a pew-pew on you.
He had the injuries to prove that the bear was mauling him. You have the right to defend yourself at a certain point. See, luckily, he had a gun to do it. Imagine if he didn't have that gun.
A pew-pew.
Oh, sorry, the pew-pew. Okay, that's the last story on Rumble or on YouTube anyway.
Otherwise, he will continue saying words that are not allowed. But we will go over to Rumble now.
And again, we're trying to grow the audience on Rumble.
Yes.
We need to get to 100 subscribers, which doesn't sound like a lot, but on Rumble,
that is a lot.
It's hard to grow a base on Rumble.
Yes.
And the reason we're going over there is because we can speak openly and honestly about political events without getting strikes against us or getting the channel striked or censored.
Yeah, and because, I mean, YouTube is right now our biggest platform, we don't want to, mess with that.
Even if you don't want to watch us on Rumble, but you're a loyal subscriber on YouTube, if you can go over there and just give us a subscribe, it would hugely help.
Yes, and thank you for being here. Have a good night, and let me see if I can end this. So, yeah, one of the first stories will be about George Soros on Rumble. Also, what's going on at the CIA and that man that tried to do bad things, and also the people that are doing bad things at Tesla dealerships apparently all have something in common. So we'll go talk about that on Rumble. Thank you. Good night.
Lots of politics tonight.
Lots of politics. Thank you and good night. And thank you to Papi Rafa for following us on Rumble.
Okay, let's start with the first one, which was...
Hold on, this thing's not even done. Okay.